Please pay attention to your roll call. Avinash. Avinash Patnaik. Okay. Avinash Patnaik. Aditi.
Present, sir.
Aditya.
Present, sir.
Aishwarya.
Present, sir.
Aliva.
Present, sir.
Alok.
Present, sir.
Anuradha.
Present, sir.
Haritra. Arpan.
Present, sir.
Arpan Narayan. Ashish. Abhi.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more thing. Aditya Adhikari is present, sir. She is facing network issue. She is there in the meeting.
Okay. Bhaskar.
Sir.
Chandita.
Present, sir.
Chinmay. Devapam.
Present, sir.
Dipsika.
Present, sir.
Gautami.
Present, sir.
Hitisri.
Present, sir.
Maheshwata.
Present, sir.
Nirbhik. Pratyasha.
Present, sir.
Pratyush.
Yes, sir.
Rahul.
Present, sir.
Rajeshwar.
Present, sir.
Rishabh.
Present, sir.
Minakshi.
Present, sir.
Sadiq. Sambit. Sambita.
Present, sir.
Santanu.
Yes, sir.
Simran.
Present, sir.
Sarada.
Present, sir.
Shivam. Shreya.
Present, sir.
Shreya Shruti. Sneha.
Present, sir.
Soham. Soumyajit.
Present, sir.
Subhajit.
Present, sir.
Shubham. Sunit.
Present, sir.
Tini. Yes. Aditya. Present, sir. Abhinav. Kumar Aditya. Shivani.
Present, sir.
Piyush. Itisri.
Present, sir.
Divyajyoti.
Present, sir.
Siddhant.
Present, sir.
Shashwat.
Present, sir.
Sonali.
Present, sir.
Naman. Anyone who missed attendance, please raise your hands. Haritra 155. Arpan 157. Siddhant roll number.
329.
Okay. What was your roll number you told?
Sir, 329.
Okay. Okay. So anyone having any doubt regarding the project or what we have discussed so far? So these are the five hypothesis testing what we have discussed, and that will be part of your section B question. Section B and section A. Section A is any of MCQs, right? Section A will cover both pre-mid and post-mid, and section B will have three questions from the post-mid, and one question is about the approach application. So there is no direct theoretical questions. One question will be basically application based, right? If I give you a business research problem, how will you approach? What are the steps, right? So those are the things you have to mention. So and that is up to you, right? What you have to like kind of how you approach that problem, what you have learned so far in qualitative and quantitative. So those are the steps or the approach or the application part you have to write. So that is one question in section B. Other three questions will be numericals, right? And like I mentioned before, you can use Excel, but Excel files are not allowed. So whatever analysis you do it in Excel, same thing again you have to replicate or write it again in your document where you are writing your answers, right? And please make sure that all the documents and even after telling so many times, people do that mistake unless you name your document correctly. So at a time, any professor, not only me, when they will be downloading from that module, there will be around 300 files. So they are not going to search one by one who has answered what. If you have not named your document properly. So make sure that you are naming your documents properly. At least your roll numbers will be there, right? So that I can identify who has written what. Any questions regarding what we have discussed so far or any kind of doubts? Anyone? Okay. So if not, I'll just take, we'll not have a full class today. I'll just take 10-15 minutes to discuss. Not necessarily for your project point of view, but for your, it will be helpful for your summer intensive project and any kind of project, right? So what we have learned so far, if I have collected data, right, then data I'll have to like kind of carry out I have to write an hypothesis, and not necessarily that every time you have to write an hypothesis, right? So that is a misconception what we have. Anywhere you are doing a project, not necessarily it has to be a research project, right? And that's what I told in the beginning, right? But what is kind of at least the requirement or expectation from the college, university, or the placement department is that you know how to carry out data analysis. It is not that you have to form every time a hypothesis. It can be a stock market analysis, right? So there is no hypothesis need to be written, right? You are just carrying out a fundamental or technical analysis of the stock, or it can be a channel distribution analysis, right? Where is a gap for a FMCG company. So again, there is no research. So though it is a research, it is not a hypothesis-based research, right? Where you are going with a hypothesis. So those will be exploratory research, right? So you want to understand where the channel gap or product gap is there, portfolio gap is there, or what kind of product kind of strategy a company has, right? You can do a competitor analysis, right? So there are different methods of doing carrying out analysis. It is not necessarily that this what we have studied so far, hypothesis testing is mandatory, right? So don't get into that okay, I have to do a hypothesis testing, how to do it, and that kind of trouble. If it is required, yes, you have to form an hypothesis, then collect data and carry out analysis. But some of the problem, 30 to 40% of your project can be done without any hypothesis testing. But what is expectation from the college or university that you collect data and carry out some kind of analysis. It cannot be just some just theoretical data, right? So one big challenge what we'll face when collecting data, if you are, let's say, carrying out a survey, right? So that's what let us just discuss maybe for 10-15 minutes. Is the screen visible to all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So basically, like when so what we have discussed over in the this univariate or bivariate, univariate example for basis, right? You have already done some kind of descriptive analysis. Let's say one sample t test. That's the univariate test, right? So we are taking one sample. Variable is one. Univariate means one variable. Bivariate means two variable. Multivariate means multiple variables, right? So univariate, one thing what we did is one sample t-test. Then bivariate, you can think of as a cross tabulation or correlation. Two sample t-test, we have two groups, right? Two variables. So one categorical variable which has two groups, let's say male and female. Gender becomes a variable, and let's say I want to understand your CGPA difference, right? CGPA becomes another variable. That is one bivariate or two variables. Multiple variate, only one example what we've studied is regression, right? We have one dependent variable, the like let's say the salary of a person. Independent variables is work experience and gender of a person, right? So that is a multivariate program. Again, there are a lot of multivariate. Think about factor analysis, cluster analysis, conjoint analysis. There is something called positioning map, multidimensional scaling. Those things in some of you, if you take marketing research or any other subject, second year electives, so those will be covered. But at least for your what we have covered so far, univariate one sample t test we have covered, bivariate cross tabulation, two sample t test, multivariate ANOVA can come there, multiple ANOVA or ANOVA. Then your regression, right? So this part data analysis part, putting an hypothesis, how to carry out data analysis in Excel. In some cases I have shown you in manually also, that has been covered, and obviously that has been covered before also. The challenge what we'll face is here in the previous part. And it is not only in your research project, any kind of data analysis project, right? So people talk about a lot of time business analytics, data analytics. 30% work is after data analysis, 70% work is here. Validation, editing, coding, data entry, data tabulation, because that is the most challenging task which has not been automated properly, right? Collecting data, once you collect data, right, how do you validate it? What do you mean by validation? How do you make sure that respondent, let's say I have given you a survey, right? Most of the times what will do, you just randomly put certain answer, right? Then in that case, what will happen? I will not get a correct result. How to validate that, right? So that is something, again, there are different methods to do validation, but you know that let's say somebody who was right repeatedly answered, right, you know that that answer might not be correct, right? So again, it is a very tedious process. There is no like kind of a proper rule or a semantics for that. Okay, if this answer is given, you will like reject that answer, right? It comes with experience. It comes with certain like kind of let's say you know that let's say you are doing this research for a ITC distributor. You know that none of the ITC distributor can get payment after let's say 30 days or 45 days, right? Maximum is 30 days, right? So that is the limit. But some people just support 120 days, 115 days, right? So then how to treat that data, right? So that is where validation. And the error, it is not necessarily respondent. Sometimes it happens about the interviewer also or the researcher also. You have not written down the question properly. Somebody who is writing or somebody who is answering you, right? When you are asking that question, he could not or she could not understand your question, right? It is not necessarily that respondent is always in fault, right? So that is somewhere again corresponding, that is known as cheating or falsification of the data collection process. Then editing. So one of the biggest challenge what we'll face in the missing data, right? People have not answered or people do not give answers, leave certain answers empty. How to like take care of those fields, right? Let's say you have collected data from 300 or 200 respondents. Out of that, for 50 respondents, they have not provided some details about their specific details about their, let's say, some answers, right? How to like kind of, so one way is to reject them. Don't consider, if you have a good sample of data, let's say 500 or 1000, and out of that 50 or 10 percentage, so up to 20 percentage, it is okay. You can reject up to 20. Again, that is a thumb rule, right? Again, it can vary from project to project. So if you have 1,000 data points, up to 100 or 200 data points, if I believe that those are either falsified the data or missing data is there, I can reject those respondents or responses, right? Other way of doing this is, you find a similar answer, right? Let's say one female who is between 19 to 23-year-old doing her MBA, what kind of answer she has given, right? So there are different approaches to deal with missing data. Replace missing value with a value from similar respondent, right? So again, but these are the things you have to mention in your research project. Okay, these are the some value points or the data points which are missing, and this is how I have made sure, or I have kind of treated them, right? So this is something known as data editing or data treatment, right? Data imputation, other name of is the data imputation. You are inputting a data from some other source. Replace missing value with a value from similar respondent, right? So you check that, okay, in the similar category, what other person has replied. So you can take a that answer as a proxy for this person's answer who has not supplied you with the answer. Use answers to the other similar questions as a guide to determining the replacement value. So for the same person, right, find out similar questions, if there are certain similar questions, and what has been his or her answer, right? Then accordingly, you can, like, let's say you have kind of asked the question that how often you would like to go out in a scale of 1 to 5. Do not like at all to go out. 5 means very much like to go out, right? In the same, so that question somebody has answered, let's say 4 or 5. Another question after 5 or 6 steps, you have asked that, do you like to go out along with your friends or family members, right? In that case, that person not answered, right? So obviously in that case, you can take the previous answer and say that, okay, this person might have answered as 4 or 5, right? But these assumptions what you're taking, you have to write clearly in your research report. Sometimes what you can do, like if you have a quantifiable data, right? Let's say income group. What is the, somebody you have asked people to mention their income group, or the average expenses, monthly expenses, average monthly expenses, right? 2 or 3 people have not answered, right? So what you can do, you can just take the mean value of all the sample data for that subsample. Let's say male student, what is their average expenses? If there are 3 or 4 male students who have not answered, you just put it there, right? So this is something which will be useful, missing data, because if you are carrying out survey, most of the times these are the two challenges you'll face. One part where people have not answered correctly. Second part where people have not answered it. So let's say you have asked 20 questions. Out of that, they have answered only 10 or 15 questions. How to take care of those 5 questions they have not answered, right? So then coding, right? So this is something again, like you have to take care before sending the questionnaire, right? I remember what we discussed during this regression. I have treated male as 0, female as 1, right? So that coding, how do you code a categorical variable, right? Or how do you like code a, let's say, income groups? Less than 5 lakhs, 5 to 10, above 10 lakhs, right? 1, 2, 3, right? So like that, because when you are carrying out data analysis, rather than writing that much text in your data analysis file, if you have coded the questions properly, right, or the options properly, it becomes a little bit easier, right? Put the data in SPSS or Excel or any other software, right? So there you can create a code book, something like this. When I have this information, I am coding this to these values, right? I'll show you in like Then tabulation, right? Generally, for any kind of software, we carry out a one-way tabulation. So we have respondent informations in names in rows, variable information in columns, right? So that is a standard format. Then if you are trying to do a cross tabulation or chi-square test, right? So that is where you have to involve the pivot table, which I showed you earlier, right? So that is where you might have to do certain data manipulation to put two variables in both x-axis, y-axis, or rows or columns. Otherwise, general table format is your respondent names will be in the rows, variable names will be in the column. Right. So coding again, like I said, generally it is better if you name a categorical label to a number, right? It becomes easier for us to identify in a software, right? Rather than writing all the full text. If some of you have used SPSS, right, it becomes very difficult if you write a full text as a variable name, right? So generally what we discuss, males is 1, female into 2, or male is 0, female is 1. So these are the like kind of Likert scale, assigning 3 to very interested, 2 to somewhat interested, 1 to not interested. If somebody has mentioned the year, right, you have asked that what is your completed number of years, rather than writing his age, he has written his birth year, right? Converting that into a year, right? Completed number of years. Right? Number of children, somebody has not written the number, he has written 2 in like let's say words. Again, those kind of conversion of data has to happen. So if the data coded to maintain good amount of data, so this is what we discussed, like if you have a continuous data, right? So it is always possible to take and convert that into categorical data. If you have categorical data, it is impossible to convert that into continuous data, right? As much as possible, try to get information in a continuous format, right? But not always, right? Not always it is possible. Like if I am asking respondent about their income information, people will not provide that information, right? Some information will be very confidential. People will not like keep that openly, that what is my exact income, exact expenses, right? So that is something, some balance you have to keep, right? So if you are using a server questionnaire, it is good idea to do coding on the form, so that in the Google form itself, put that number, right? One, so let's say do not at all or strongly disagree, 1, strongly agree, 5. So it is already mentioned in your Google Form. So when you download the data, you know that what does 1 mean, what does 5 means. Right? If you do not mention that, again in the Excel you have to change that. Strongly disagree mean 1, strongly agree means 5. Right? So in the Google Form, if you already, while filling the questionnaire or like creating a questionnaire, you have already mentioned that, it becomes easier for you. Right? So this is something like a code book. Generally, before you send your questionnaire, you should have this in your Word document or Excel file. So what kind of information you are getting, right? So this is for a DVD rentals data, right? Whether somebody take DVD on rental, yes or no, 1 or 2. What kind of movie genre they take, which kind of DVD they generally rent, comedy, action, adventure. So this is it. How much time they generally rent for? One is less than 6 months. So this is a kind of a, again, not necessarily you have to like follow this example of a code book, right? So for each of the variable which you are collecting information on, right, you should have an idea of how to kind of collect data, right? So that's about it. This is something I wanted to talk about, like how to like clean data. Data cleaning is a very big step in data analytics. Again, like as you proceed further, you will learn about many techniques, how to treat missing data, how to clean data, and 60 to 70% work of your data analysis will be fetching the data from various SQL inputs, cleaning the data, and creating a table on which analysis can be done. Analysis part is only 20 to 30%. Data cleaning, data collecting, cleaning, tabulation is 60 to 70% of the task. Right? That's about it. What else is there? I'll share this file, like kind of, these are some, I think all of you know this kind of formalized functions for some count blank variation, standard deviation we have discussed, average, median. So these are the normal like function, at least you should have in your fingertip. Any time somebody gives you a data set, quickly you should be able to get this information and understand that what is this data about, right? So these some of the techniques we have discussed. We have only discussed chi-square, then t-test, Z-test, like I said, Z-test generally we do not use because population variance is not known. T-test you can use anywhere, right? Then two group T-test we have used. Frequency chi-square again we have used. Mm. Then ANOVA we have used. Correlation coefficient we have known. Cross tabulation we have done. Chi-square test for cross tabulation. Then these are the techniques when you go to the second year, like cluster analysis, multidimensional scaling, factor analysis, discriminant analysis. Then there is something called conjoint analysis. These are the advanced things which you will learn in the second year. What we have discussed only ANOVA and multiple regression, right? So this is again just to show you that because we have not covered this, so I'm not going to ask anything about discriminant or these things. Just to show you that these are certain advanced techniques in both business research and marketing research. Okay, is there any questions what we have discussed or anything?
Sir, if we want to convert the categorical data into numerical data, then what should we do? We should only code it. That is the way to convert.
Yeah, so coding means it is a dummy coding you are doing, right? If you used to want to put in a like cross tabulation or a regression, right? You need to do certain kind of dummy coding. That is the only thing which you control. Let's say I have three income groups, right? Like I said, less than 5 to 10, above 10, right? So I have to create two dummy variables to represent those three data points, three labels, so that I can use that in my regression. So that is the only thing which you have to like make sure that okay, once I get this data, I'll put this in regression. I have to create two dummy variables. So see the challenge like that day. I think I don't know in your section or some other section. So for the regression, she has around or he has around country names from 150 to 180 countries. So it will become very impossible to put that into regression, right? Because understand if I have 180 labels for country names and I'm putting that into regression, that means 179 variables I have to put. The regression model will become so complex that the answer will not be reliable, right? So that is where you have to think that whether I'll put that many dummy coding or rather than putting countries, I can put 7 regions or 7 continents or different kind of, let's say NATO is one group, ASEAN is another group. Like that, you can form different groups of countries. So in that case, rather than putting 180 countries, if I can put 6 groups of countries, then my model can be still formed, right? Just imagine the scenario, if I'm putting 180 countries in my regression model, I have to create 179 dummy variables. So it becomes very impossible to kind of carry out data analysis in that stage. So this is something again like before sending the questionnaire, because you are giving that option, right? Which country you are from, how you are going to use that data. If you do not have clarity, you will get into a trouble. So imagine that if it is only within India, then you do not have any problem. Within India also, let's say you are asking which state you are from. 29 or 30 states. That means you have to have 29 variables, right? So then in that case, what will happen? Okay, I'll collect the data. Then what will do? I'll convert the data. So I'll do certain data manipulation technique. Rather than putting 29 states, I'll convert them into 5 regions: northern part of India, southern part of India, central, east, and middle part of India. Right. So in that case, your data analysis will become little easier. Unless it is very mandated that no, I want to find certain differences between states. Right. Then only like you'll say that okay, states are different values. Right. So these things you have to like before sending the questionnaire, you have to clarify that for each question when you get the data, how you're going to analyze it. Trouble happens for the Likert scale type of questions. I am a very outgoing person. Strongly disagree to strongly agree. Right? If you are given that option and you have not put that coding, that 1 means strongly disagree, 5 means strongly agree. After collecting data in the Google Draw data, now it becomes again additional step. You have to change that to strongly disagree to 1, strongly agree to 5. Right? So that is where the problem happens. So to answer your question, categorical, when I say converting to a continuous data, it is not that we are converting to a continuous data. We are putting some identification numbers so that when you are putting in a software for analysis, it becomes little easier to visualize, right? Otherwise, if you write in full question, it becomes very clumsy to visualize in a Excel or SPSS, right? So when we are putting that number only has the meaning of the identification. If I say male is 1, female is 2, that doesn't mean female is better than 1 or other vice versa, right? It is only I'm identifying male by 1, female by 2, right? So, or income groups. In income groups, yes, it is ordinary data. I can say that 1, 2, 3, that means 3 is greater than 2, 2 is greater than 1. I can still do certain data manipulation. But nominal data, it is only for identifying that variable on that data, right? Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think that's about it then. All the best for your exam. Do practice whatever Excel files I have shared with you, as long as you are clear on that, right? Given a data, what kind of hypothesis, how to carry out data analysis. So it should be good for your exam point of view, right? And go through the slides. So initial slides when you discussed what does hypothesis testing means, what is alternate hypothesis, how to identify alternate hypothesis, right? So that will be helpful for your section A type of questions, right? Section A will be MCQs and section B anyhow, the subjective type numericals and application based questions.
Sir, I have a doubt regarding the
Yes.
Excel file you have shared. How many responses you have received for the individual project? Sir, as per my report, so I have asked everyone to share their email IDs after doing the filling up the form. So I have got 8 responses as per me, but as per your record, it's showing only 3, sir. In that Excel file which you share.
Just check that what are the email IDs, because that is what I'm getting from Google Form, right? So that is directly what I get from Google Form, I share with you. So just
Sir, I
check
can-
that.
Also for the individual
Sir, one more thing.
projects, can you just share like today's updated Google
Yeah.
Sheet so that we can
I'll share by the lunchtime.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And one more thing, I can see their email IDs in the. If I search by their email IDs, I can see their email IDs, but it is not with my name, sir. I
Yeah,
can
so
see
that means that they have not put your name. Well, I have told you, right? Email ID of the person who sent you the survey. So
No,
they
sir,
have
it is not showing with. Sir, it is not showing with anyone's roll number. So it is just showing individually
Yes, so-
in a different sheet.
Yes, because they have put that as a blank. So if they have not
But sir,
mentioned
it was a
anything,
required. Sir, it was a required field, na? If that
no,
would be
it
blank.
was not. It was not a required field, I guess.
Okay, sir. Then, sir, what
So
should I do,
just
sir, now?
write to me that what are the email IDs.
Okay, sir.
You
Thank you,
consider.
sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So for any of you that problem has happened, you can write down these are the email IDs for me who was answered. So I'll consider that. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir.
Chalo, take care. All the best for your exam. See you next year. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye bye.
Recording stopped.